Right, so this lesson's all about software, and this lesson we're looking at the user interface design. Okay, now there are lots of things that make up a good user interface. What we're going to do is we're going to look at a number of different user interfaces this lesson, and what makes them good, what makes them bad, what's good about them, what's bad about them. The type of user interface you choose is important because everybody wants to do different things. There are two main keywords here. There is the GUI and there is the WIMP. Now everybody laughs when we talk about this, but you've got to try and think about it because these two will be mentioned in an exam. A GUI stands for Graphical User Interface, and these are the type of operating systems that we use every single day. Basically they're the Windows, the OS X's of this world, they're graphical and we can do it. Now all graphical user interfaces are based on a WIMP environment. A WIMP environment is Windows, like this one has. It has Windows on it. It has icons, it has menus, and it has pointers. Okay, and there's GUI and there's a WIMP environment. A GUI is a WIMP environment, but when it's asked to describe what is a WIMP environment or what are the characteristics, all GUIs have windows, icons, menus, and pointers. Even if you're in an OS X environment, it still has windows that open up software. Right, now when we talk about the different types of interface, we'll go for 4 main types. So the first one is command line. Now these used to be really common, but you don't see them very often. And what you have to do is you have to type in specific commands for it to do things. Now when I first started in computing, this is how it worked. Now this was how life was, and we have this inside Windows, or we have an emulator, and if you typed in command prompt into Windows, then it will show you what a command line looks like. Examples of commands are dir d : / that will show the entire directory of D drive. There is also copy C : / text .txt to D : and as you see, that will copy anything that's in C : text.txt to D : so it's going to D drive. Okay, and that's command line. Now the good thing about command line is because it's only it's a black screen and all it is a flashing cursor, it is blisteringly fast. Okay, if you were working in command prompt all day every day, not using Windows at all, you would have a very, very, very fast computer. Unfortunately, the downside to this is that you have to remember all commands, which means that it's very specialist. Okay, so you need to be an expert to really use this. This is why computers used to be out of the reach of a lot of people, because you had to remember all the commands, and most people, when computers first came out, they couldn't remember all the commands, so that meant that obviously it was there. It's the very old way of accessing computers, and it's not very friendly, is it? If you imagine just a bot, if you imagine on your screen you're a black square and it's just all black, and all you've got flashing away in the corner is that. That's all you've got on the whole of a black screen, and you've got to type there all day. It's not going to work very well. So it's not very user friendly. Okay, But if we were doing something on a machine with not much memory and not much speed or processing power, if you had a command prompt, it would still work just as fast. The other one that we talk about is the GUI. Now, what can you remember from what I just told you? You'll have to try and remember what GUI stands for. This is the one which we are most used to. This is the GUI, which is based on a WIMP environment. And again, I'm not telling you what that means because I sort of covered that at the beginning. Clicking an icon will open Windows. Now this is a really common thing now, okay? And this was really great because the advantages of this is that everyone can use. Okay, so everyone can use a GUI. Okay, but the disadvantage, as soon as we started using this, is that it's the processing power. If you go and have a look now at the new Windows operating system and find out how much RAM and hardware it requires to run it, it's big, it's a lot of information, and it's a lot of power. I think at the moment we need at least 1 GB of RAM to run any kind of operating system. Now, when we talked about that in reference to the command line, this would require 2 megabytes of RAM, if that. So you need to be 1,000 times more powerful to run a GUI operating system. So it is a lot of extra, 1,000 times more RAM at least to run the operating system. Well, that's not great, is it? So you've got to think about this. It's all a balancing act, okay? There are loads and loads of different advantages and disadvantages to these, but I'm just going through the quick one, okay? They also take a lot more space, because I could install a command line interface and it would take me 3 megabytes. If I install a GUI like Windows, you won't get much space from about 2 gigabytes. So again, a lot more space taken up from that. Okay, but you don't need no training. Most people can guess what to do, and it's a lot faster to use for the user. Okay, but it's not as fast to run as far as the command line and processing speed. Right, the next type of interface we have is a menu-based interface. Now, a menu-based interface, this gets confused with a GUI. Don't, okay? This is working your way through menus. Hold on, working through F-T-R-U-G. Now, the best examples of this are probably things like cache points, where you have a box and you have all your options and then you have a button next to it. And when I press a button, it takes me to another menu, and it takes me to another menu and another menu. So these buttons would then take you through. The other way of looking at it is that is the good old, I'm going to use the iPod wheel. There's my iPod wheel. And that's your iPod. And again, we have a list of stuff. We press our iPod button and then it takes me to another menu. Now the advantage of this is obviously it limits what the user can do. Now that could be a good thing and a bad thing, because let's face it, you could either limit so they don't go into an area where you don't want them to go, or you limit them, and that means that's great because it takes them straight to what they need rather than what they think they need. So that's an advantage and a disadvantage. Of course, there are other advantages You don't need a lot of training, so that's why they're on cache points, because let's face it, you're pressing a button, and as long as you can press a button, you're pretty much alright, or the ability to read. Okay? The downside is, if you have lots of menus, it can be confusing. To get back. Yeah, so you've got to be really careful about how you design it, and of course, if you make it hard, you've got to be careful about how you design the menu so that it makes it easy to read and you can navigate easy, and that's all about design. Okay. Now, the last one that we have to talk about is form-based interfaces. Now, this is the last one, so I'm just going to quickly go through this because I'm on 10 minutes. It's a way, form-based interfaces are mainly application-based. So basically in Word, you have a form that tells you how to set up all your fonts and things like that. Yeah. It allows easy entry, because obviously I'm picking I'm picking from a list of options. So by picking from a list of options, it makes my life easier. And I can use all the tricks of forms. So you've got things like checkboxes, options boxes. You've got, what else have you got? You've got scroll bars. Yeah, it allows easy entry, but it's very, very limiting in what you can do. So if I was presenting you with a form, the only thing you can do is you can fill in form. So you've got to be really, really careful when you're picking your user interface. Now, I've quickly gone through that because I've gone to 12 minutes, but they're the main types of user interface that you need to know for the exam, and you need to be able to describe what the advantages and the disadvantages of each of the user interfaces are, and be clear on the terms GUI and WIMP environments. Okay? Hope that helps.